From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. In today's show, Mark tunes into Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley's weekly Ag Conference call. I continue my featured conversation with Landus Cooperative Technical Agronomist Dan Bjorklund, and Dustin talks with Ag and Business Legal Strategies Associate Attorney Austin Peiffer. Now let's welcome in our hosts, Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman.
Well, welcome into another kind of cloudy day here in Iowa as we get started on the Iowa Ag Matters program here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. And Mark Magnuson joining me again. Well, we've seen reports of some more rainfall that came through, a little bit of sprinkles here this morning. Of course, Western Iowa was where we've been watching how much rain they've gotten. It's interesting how we've talked about it. Usually the Mississippi River has been the geographical divide between the Eastern Corn Belt and the Western Corn Belt, but we've been talking about dryness, especially in these last couple of years. It seems that Interstate 35, as it bisects Iowa, has been the difference between Eastern Iowa being part of the Eastern Corn Belt meteorologically, and then the western part of Iowa being in the Western Corn Belt, where it's usually drier and a little bit more arid. And so it's been interesting to see that not follow geography, but more follow the plans of the Department of Transportation.
And it is interesting when we think about these recent rainfalls in recent days, Dustin, because, for example, I know Riley was here in the office yesterday talking about his grandparents that live in Audubon, which is, of course, in southwest Iowa. And they were one of those spots that just had been missing some of the rainfall. But yesterday they did get some of that rain, over an inch, I believe. And so there are some pockets that are getting some rain here at this time that is, just hitting at the right time. And it is making things set up pretty well for the state of Iowa in terms of receiving this rainfall, because as you look at some of these yield projections that we've been getting from the various private companies that make those yield estimates, including StoneX, which came out with their predictions a couple of days ago before the next USDA WASDE report, Iowa is sitting in great shape in terms of those yield projections. So we'll see if we get to that point. But Iowa is one of the states in the Corn Belt that really has been more fortunate in terms of receiving that rain this year.
We got those reports yesterday. As you said, Jim McCormick told you that Iowa was looking at about 214 bushels per acre for corn. Of course, he said it remains for what the Iowa farmers see out there, if that's believable or not at the point, but still would be some good numbers. But, you were up in Lamar's, Iowa last week as we do the Heart of the County Fair Awards, which we'll be talking about again at the Iowa State Fair, handing out those awards. But, in that northwest part of Iowa, we've been hearing a lot about the dryness out there. And did you get to see that firsthand? And then, of course, your connections up there in Spencer, Iowa, have you heard any reports on if they got any rain out of this last wave that went through?
You know what? I actually have not heard any reports yet on Spencer. I can check on that, but I haven't gotten that information yet. I do know, though, for Lamar's, I was pleasantly surprised, Dustin. Now, granted, I think the more dry parts are a little bit northwest of Lamar's, but just obviously it is just anecdotal and highway scouting. I thought the crops looked great in Lamar's as well, or in that area, that pocket of Iowa. So I think really we are setting up well for this stretch run.
Yeah, and of course, we're going to hear more from those Iowa farmers as we get ready for the Iowa State Fair coming up here just a week away. I know Riley's getting excited. But let's go ahead and get into the grains right now. Eric Ralph of Comstock Investments talking with Mark.
Joined today by Eric Ralph of Comstock for the opening market discussion. Eric, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
Well, we're actually starting to see some life as we came out of the morning break here this morning. Beans are putting on a little bit of gains. We're up a few cents in the soybeans and have come positive just in the last several minutes in the corn, which was not the case throughout much of the overnight trade. We were kind of weaker to around steady through most of the overnight. So seeing some life in these grains is definitely a good sign. We have seen enough weakness where we got down and checked some significant technical support in both December corn and November soybeans. Those marks coming in at about 459 for December corn and 1170 for November soybeans. We did probe both of those levels and then finish above them yesterday. Now seeing a little bit of green on the screen this morning. Maybe we've done enough to factor in this weather that we're seeing leading into this recording. You and I were talking about the rainfall that some areas have been seeing in each of the last several days. There's a lot of the growing region has seen some of that rain. And maybe that's all priced in now, and we're looking forward to what does the forecast look like. We're going to remain hot for quite a while. There are still some chances of rain, but Again, perhaps that's priced in, and we're looking forward to next week's report from the USDA, both crop production and WASDE reports coming out next Wednesday. So that's probably going to become the primary focus. And what does that report generally do? And you're going to have people dissecting the history of the report and what does that mean moving forward, and how much are the bad areas going to hinder where the good areas are really going to outperform expectations.
And speaking of that upcoming WASDE report, we have gotten some industry estimates for yield at the end of the season, and some of those numbers have been pretty high, Eric.
They have, and we're starting to see some bigger firms releasing numbers just here in the last 24 hours. I would say StoneX's number was probably the most publicized. It was the first to come out. That corn yield at 184.8, I think, shocked the market a little bit. Now you're starting to see anywhere from 181 to that 184.8 coming out across some major reporting industry experts, quote unquote. And so we'll see who's going to be right at the end of the day. But these initial numbers definitely shocked the market, and we're recovering a little bit as we start to see some lower yield estimates come in here again overnight and into this morning.
And then something else that we've been talking kind of in the background of all of that discussion is, yes, not only has the weather been favorable for some of these yield expectations, but that disease pressure has not been as intense as last year.
No, and that's generally true of a hotter year. And we also have to keep in mind that genetics have been improved over several decades now to be heat and drought resistant. I mean, this is what they've been working towards for a long time. So then you have a year where it's wet and cool, you start to get into a lot more issues, especially with rootworm. Southern rust became a big issue for many last year, and we talked about that several times. Those things kind of go away when you're in a drier and hotter year. Then it's just a matter of, can you get the timely rains to keep the not only pollination, but fill and everything going to the finish line. And it looks like for some key growing regions, especially Iowa, Illinois, there's going to be many that fall into that category that did get those timely rains. They didn't have the typical disease issues along the way, and they're really going to outperform their APHs in a lot of pockets.
Get in the fair spirit at the Iowa State Fair and save before you go. The countdown is on to the Iowa State Fair, and now's the time to plan ahead. With advance admission tickets, lock in your visit before you arrive and step into 11 days of live music, fair traditions, incredible food, and summer moments you look forward to all year long. Save $5 now. Advance tickets are available now at iowastatefair.org, on the app, and at participating Iowa Hy-Vee and Fairway stores. Celebrate fair spirit at the Iowa State Fair.
August 13th through the 23rd.
We're back here on Iowa Ag Matters on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and it is time for the weekly Ag Media Call with Iowa Senior Senator Chuck Grassley as he talks about the Farm Bill being marked up in the Senate here as we speak today. Mark Magnuson has more.
We've been waiting 3 years, and finally we're going to have an Ag Committee markup on the Farm Bill. That's going to be tomorrow. The current draft includes important provisions on year-round E15, fertilizer markets, among other important provisions. Year-round nationwide E15 would lower prices at the pump for the consumer and generate $14 billion in corn demand. I applaud my colleagues for their bipartisan work to get E15 in the Farm Bill and remain hopeful we'll see President Trump sign E15 into law. I've filed a handful of amendments to the Farm Bill. One amendment would reduce bureaucracy by reassigning the duties of the crop inputs economist to other USDA offices. Another would increase transparency in pricing trends for fertilizers, seed, and fuel. I'm also filing an amendment to add my legislation that strengthens accountability in the meatpacking industry. That legislation is known as the Meat and Poultry Special Investigator Act. The bill would establish a team of USDA investigators with subpoena powers to go after anti-competitive practices. It's critical Congress advance the Farm Bill quickly because family farmers deserve relief from high costs and market uncertainty. I look forward to working with my colleagues to move this legislation along.
ACM and CMA award winner, Hardy.
That's my favorite country song.
Live in concert.
I woke up on the wrong side of the truck bed this morning.
August 13th, 8 p.m., Iowa State Fair Grandstand.
You got it good, old boy.
With special guest McCoy Moore. Hardy Live. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Hardy 2026.
Well, Mark, we have been watching here the Senate markup of the Farm Bill, almost a Farm Bill 2.0 now, because it's their second version after some concessions that were made concerning SNAP. And I'm sure Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley had things to say about those. Of course, they needed to get the votes. And to do that, they had to make some concessions to the Democrats. And the Democrats did make some concessions on percentages of penalties and things like that. So, I mean, there is some bipartisanship in this version. And hopefully there's enough to carry it. Of course, like we said, they started debating, and of course, amendments can be added. And there's so much more to go on this. But you know, Iowa's waiting for this. Iowa farmers have been waiting for this for 3 years overdue for this. And so it's about time that hopefully we can get this done.
That's the thing, Dustin. You know, you say Farm Bill 2.0, but it really feels like Farm Bill about 9.0, because we have been just going for years now trying to get this Farm Bill completed. Yes, we did have some of those updates to the prices based on some of the budget bills and things that have updated the language of the current Farm Bill over the years. But this has been so long in terms of what we've been waiting for, to see this finally cross the finish line, get everything updated, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that we can finally see it, I guess, come to a conclusion.
Yeah, and that's what we're watching. And like I said, and it's not just the Iowa farmers that are watching it. It's the agribusinesses. It's groups like the Iowa Corn Growers, Iowa Soybean Association. You know, everybody's weighed in on their 2 cents. And I think it's more the support is coming. Not everybody's getting exactly what they want, but they're getting something done. And that's what we need, is that certainty, especially in the ag industry. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
Time to run down the basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Dustin Huffman. Only 2 elevators making any kind of changes to their bids, both of them lowering their corn prices. Let's go ahead and run them down for you today. Starting at IAM Burlington, they're 25 cents under on corn at $4.12. Soybeans 32 cents under at $11.36. Cargill and Eddyville 15 cents under on corn, $4.22 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona 30 cents under on corn, $4.07. Soybeans 25 cents under, cash bid $11.43. Ag State Sheldon 19 cents under on corn, $4.18. Soybeans 35 cents under at $11.33. Ag State Alta 26 cents under on corn, $4.11. Soybeans 30 cents under, cash bid $11.38. Cargill Cedar Rapids 7 cents under on corn with a cash bid of $4.30. Soybeans a nickel over at $11.73. 5-Star Co-op Nashua 30 cents under on corn, $4.07. Soybeans are 40 cents under, they're at $11.28. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada 20 cents under on corn with a cash bid of $4.17. ADM Des Moines a nickel over on soybeans, their cash price $11.73. New Co-op Red Oak 20 cents under on corn, $4.17. Soybeans 17 cents under, $11.51. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain 42 cents under on corn, $3.95 for the cash bid. Soybeans 50 cents under, $11.18. New Co-op Sheraton 24 cents under on corn, $4.13. Soybeans 25 cents under at $11.43. Walk-On Feed Ranch 48 cents under on corn, $3.89. Soybeans 67 cents under at $11.01 for the cash bid. New Co-op Glidden 29 cents under on corn, $4.08. Soybeans 25 cents under at $11.43. Innovative Ag Farley 42 cents under on corn, cash bid $3.95. Soybeans 69 cents under at $10.99. And finally today at Cargill Muscatine, they're 30 cents under on corn, $4.07. Soybeans 30 cents under with a cash bid of $11.38. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. With this check of your basis numbers here on Iowa Ag Matters, I'm Dustin Huffman. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Rod Stewart.
Will I see you tonight?
A special evening with the icon.
On a downtown train.
A night of hit. After hit. After hit. With special guest Richard Marks. Friday, August 14th, Iowa State Fair Grandstand. Reserve tickets on sale now through iowastatefair.org. Don't miss an electrifying event. Friday, August 14th. Rod Stewart, live.
You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters, and it is time for Dustin to continue his conversation with Austin Peiffer, talking about legal and business strategies relating to your farm operation and those two sides working in tandem. Here's Dustin with more.
So then, Austin, what kind of things do farmers need to think about? Obviously, we know that there are people that have to look at bankruptcies. There are people who have to look at different legal aspects. And I mean, the ultimate goal, obviously, you want to try to save your farm as much as you possibly can. But obviously, you get between a rock and a hard place, it becomes a tight situation. I mean, what kind of things can folks be thinking about when talking about legal protections in these situations? Because, like you said, it can spiral out of control really fast.
The first thing that I would say is look on the financial side. Our name is Ag and Business Legal Strategies because we talk about the business and the strategies. Legal is only part of it. I can devise a clever legal solution that might get you out of the jam that you're in right this second. But if I don't help you make your business sustainable, I haven't really helped you that much. You're going to be coming back in a few years with more problems. So you got to look on the business side. So have you filed your tax returns? Yeah, you might have gotten an extension for 25, not due till October. Okay. Have you filed your 24 returns? Have you filed your 23 returns? If you're not filing your tax returns, that's a major red flag. The next place to look is your balance sheet and your cash flow. Now, if the only thing you do with the balance sheet is put it together at the end of the year because your operating lender requires it, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because a good balance sheet, especially if you've got a string of them, can help you see what your farm is doing. Are you making money from operations, or is the money in the bank because you sold land, you sold equipment, or what have you? Are you making money from your government program payments, or are you making money from planting a crop for less than it costs, less than you get for selling it? And then the cash flow will show even in more detail, are you looking to make money this year? And if you really drill down in that cash flow, you can use it to analyze whether you're making money on this particular operation. Sometimes people think, well, yeah, I might not be making money doing this, but I've got something else that's making money and it'll support it. Well, when times are tight, you got to think about, why am I supporting these money-losing operations? Does it make sense? Is it worth it? Is it worth it to keep this line of business that is losing money right now? Is it a one-off that it's losing money? It's made money in the past and this is just a bad year, but I expect it'll change. Has it ever made money? Are you counting for all of the expenses? Do you need a bigger tractor because you've taken on more acres? Well, have you factored that into the cost of production for those new acres? You need a bigger line of credit. That's going to mean more interest to fund this operation. If you can look in a really detailed manner at every aspect of your operation, even down to, is this lease making money? Yeah, it's good ground, but maybe I'm paying too high a premium for it, or maybe it's too far away and I'm spending hours and lots of fuel and wear and tear on my equipment just getting there. You have to look in a really detailed manner at your finances and your operation and see what can work. And then after that, you take that business insight and then you look at the legal options available to you. Do you need to negotiate a refinancing with a bank or a restructuring with your current bank? Do you need to sell equipment and pay down debt and make sure that the equipment you sell is free and clear? Do you need to get a deal with your current bank to take some money that would otherwise go to that bank and send it to some creditors that might not have priority, but you can explain to the bank why it's a good idea to make sure they're paid. You can do a whole lot if you are proactive and you talk to people and you ask for permission instead of forgiveness. Unfortunately, most of the time people reach us, they don't have a good handle on their finances. They already acted, and maybe they'll get around to asking for forgiveness with our help. And they come to us so late that they've lost many of their best options. So
This year at the Iowa State Fair, Fair Spirit meets 250 years of American history in a celebration across the fair. See the America 250 Iowa display and a permanent sculpture created just for the fair. Walk the Iowa Veterans Memorial Walkway honoring service and sacrifice. Experience 250 years of the American flag, along with red, white, and blue contests and fair favorites. Then look to the sky for drone shows glowing in red, white, and blue, lighting up the fair like never before. From history to celebration, it all comes together at the Iowa State Fair. Learn more at iowastatefair.org.
August 13th through the 23rd.
Dustin, the countdown is on. A week from today, we will be broadcasting from the Iowa State Fairgrounds, which, as we count our lucky stars every year, is just down the road from our office, and we're really looking forward to making it over there next week.
Yeah, that we are going to starting up the 11 days of the Iowa State Fair. I know Riley is chomping at the bit. He's already checked his food list twice, and he's running down the order in which he's going to be going to places. I know you're going to Pork Chop on a Stick first. That's always the given, and I'll probably go get my Iowa Beef Sunday from the Iowa Cattlemen's Association there. That's always a first as well. But, all sorts of great things. And, of course, we've already got a great group of guests already lined up to visit us during the fair, including Iowa Ag Secretary Mike Nag, Iowa Congresswoman Ashley Hinson, and Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Among those, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley usually stopping by as well. Of course, we got the Steer Show, the Iowa Governor's Charity Steer Show coming up as well on Saturday. And, of course, we have the Heart of the County Fair Award presentations on Friday night as well, and you'll be able to learn more about those. On the side of our building, we'll have those codes to link up, and you can learn more about our families. Again, you can find the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network building right next to the Super Bowl at the Cattle Barns. So we're looking forward to seeing you next week, starting next Thursday at the Iowa State Fair. More Iowa Ag Matters in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you.
This is the Midday Market Update on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson, joined today by John Heimberg of Total Farm Marketing. John, what's happening with the trade in the grains?
All right, we're starting to see some selling pressure here around 11 o'clock hours. We continue just to see the market move away from their long positions, being led by wheat today. Wheat's trading 13, 14 cents lower. Some of that's just the lack of business on the export front, the cost of U.S. wheat on the global scale, even with the Ukraine and Russia issues going on out there that could be affecting some of the export market. But at least right now, corn, beans, and wheat have taken out Monday's lows, which were some nice reversals to the upside. So again, we're kind of kicking the selling pressure into the marketplace. Over in that corn market, now trading 2 to 3 cents lower. We kind of pushed through 458 on December corn. That was a pretty big floor underneath this market. In fact, in the last month and a half, we've tested that 4 times, and finally today we pushed through that 458 level, so that could just bring some technical selling. So we'll have to really watch how the close goes today. That's been a bit of a shelf. If you draw a line through that 458, 460 window, goes all the way back to last fall as kind of the area that held this market and with some support. A little fearful that if we see some money flow continue to leave the corn market with basically right now favorable weather forecasts, helping put some pounds on this crop. That maybe the technical side and the momentum sellers can push this back down and retest those lows from June. Hopefully not, but that I wouldn't put that out of the question just the way the money wants to move. Soybeans, same situation there. We kind of broke through. We're 1170 area is going to be a big spot. We did test that and held that so far this morning, trading 3 to 4 lower. Really concerned about the products, though. We got a weak soybean meal chart. You got a soybean oil chart that looks like it's ready to break some major support. And those things could really impact the soybean side of the equation because those crush margins will continue to fall apart.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
Yeah, another difficult day there as well. I was really encouraged by the close yesterday and getting above that 200-day moving average on the October contract. But we saw a big drop in retail values, even though cash bids are a little bit firmer than last week. Retails were down $5 on choice carcasses today. You continue to see some weakness in the feeder cattle index. So we got a pretty stiff break right now.
No one knows your fields better than you, but it's hard to be everywhere at once. Sky Scout from Landus Cooperative helps you keep an eye on every acre throughout the growing season. Using aerial imagery and expert analysis, Sky Scout can help identify crop stress, stand concerns, nutrient issues, and other potential challenges before they become bigger problems. The result? More informed decisions and greater confidence in every pass across the field. Because the earlier you know, the more options you have. Talk with your Landus representative or call 515-817-2100 to learn more about Sky Scout today.
September corn down 2.5 at 434 1/4. September soybeans down 4 1/4 at 1152 1/4. September soybean meal down 20 cents at 310 even. September soybean oil down 21 cents at 67.51. Chicago wheat down 14 1/4 at 628. Minneapolis wheat is down 16 cents at 667. Kansas City hard red wheat down 18 cents at 695 1/2. September oats down 4 1/2 at 312 even. On the Merc, August live cattle down $1.95 at 232.23. August feeder cattle down $3.15 at 350.18. October lean hogs down $1.20 at 81.83. October pork cutout unchanged at 107.28. That was a check of the midday markets on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Mark Magnuson.
Well, we are back on Iowa Ag Matters, and we are going to take a look now at the livestock side of the marketplace. Those cattle and hogs having a rough start to the day. Cattle down triple digits, hogs down double digits once again. Mark Magnuson's got more for us right now.
What's happening on the livestock side of the trade?
This morning, we're under a little bit of weakness in both feeder and live cattle futures. We have seen some improvement in the cash market. Some of these feeder cattle barns reporting certain segments of the feeder cattle as much as $20 to $25 higher on a national level. A lot of weaned calves bringing big money this week, and we've got some special sales coming up. That's definitely helped bolster things a little bit, and it's certainly given the cattle feeders some gusto when it comes to negotiating with the packers. They kind of seem to be digging their heels in a little bit. We're seeing some improved cash already by Wednesday this week. What we do today and tomorrow obviously will dictate what the higher volumes are going to look like. It does look like the packers are reluctant to be out there bidding very aggressively. There's stories running around that certain packers are only buying so many cattle in certain regions, and all these games that they'll play to try to get cattle bought at lower prices. But at the end of the day, we are going to see improvement on the weighted averages this week for the first time in several weeks. And we're seeing some board response as a result of that. Hopefully we can keep that momentum going for a few weeks here and actually get this thing back in line with where we were just a few weeks back.
What's happening on the hog side?
The hog charts have been under pressure, and it's been kind of ugly here lately, but we're actually seeing some stable trade here this morning. That would be a victory at this point, honestly. August hogs trading a dime higher coming out of the morning open here, 96.70 last trade. We have been down for 4 out of the last 7 sessions. The problem is the down days have been huge compared to the up days being very minimal. So we've been in this really sharp downtrend for the last 7 sessions after making a meaningful high back on July 28th. If this down trend continues for the short term, that August contract could go all the way down to about $93.50, $94. So still a few dollars lower than our current trade. No one, of course, hoping for that, but this market has become extremely oversold. The cash market just can't seem to get any legs under it. We see a couple days of improvement, and then we back off again. And then we see a day or two per week where the packers seem to be shifting and turning more aggressive, and they're working in the negotiated market heavier, and then we back off again. Cutouts actually been pretty good as long as we can keep bellies propped up. That's going to continue to be a bright spot. But technically and futures wise, this lean hog market is definitely struggling, and we need something to try to turn the corner. We just haven't seen that seasonal rally that we normally would in early summer. Of course, now we're late summer. We still really haven't seen that big rally. Hopefully it'll come along, and it's still many expecting a pocket of light numbers on the supply side of things as we get in further into the month of August.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
We're back here on Iowa Ag Matters, and we're going to go into those Iowa fields with Dan Bjorklund talking about crop scouting. He's with Landus Cooperative. Riley Smith had a chance to sit down and get an update with him right now on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
You'd mentioned before we got going here today that it feels much more this year like a, what do I kind of say, a comprehensive pressure from several diseases as opposed to one big disease hitting the crops. How does that kind of change the strategy for this year? Obviously, with Southern Rust, yes, it was the one big pressure, but you can tell when it's there, it's the one thing to look for. When you have a bunch of diseases who are adding a lot of pressure, how does that change a scouting strategy?
Well, I have always looked at the 46 years that I've been doing this. I've always looked and I coined a phrase, with the previous company about 20 years ago. And I said what we were really looking for was the total field stress load. And what I meant by that is you might have one stress that is an insect that's causing 3 or 4% damage in a field. You might have a disease coming in that's taking another 3%. You might have heavy weed pressure in an area where you weren't able to get weed control, and all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 stresses, and they're adding up, 3-4% at a time, and you've got real stress and real yield impact. To me, then you need some kind of a system that is really, really accurate at identifying those stresses. And I use Sky Scout. It's our new technology. We use satellites, drones, planes. And I'm going on an acre by acre basis. I'm trying to determine what is going on in each acre, and is there anything I can do to correct a stress if I find it. So I think having a very, very finely tuned scouting program, which Sky Scout helps for me, it's almost impossible to take an 80 and to walk that entire field, either a producer or an agronomist. But if you have imagery from that field that says, hey, in this northwest corner, something is going on there, then you have a better chance of finding out where those stresses are and then maybe doing something about them.
So when you get that imagery from Sky Scout, exactly how much detail and data are you able to get from that?
There are about 8 different images. One of them is called thermal, and it basically takes the temperature of the field. And if you have an elevated temperature, that usually indicates that something's going on. I use the analogy that if we get a temperature and we go into the doctor, or if we don't have a temperature, but we're not feeling well and going to the doctor, about the first thing they do is take your temperature because it's an indication that you have something going on. So that's one area that I use, especially in July and August. And I just walk to those areas. And the software that is utilized in the Sky Scout will use an algorithm of maybe 3 or 4 factors. Some of it is just elevation differences in the field. Usually the lower areas stay wetter and you can get more disease there. So you look at elevation, you look at the thermal, which I talked about as temperature. We use NDVI, it uses biomass, and then it predicts where in the field is the highest potential for, say, like disease, like Southern Rust. And I just walk to that area and that's what I scout. It saves so much time, Riley, and it's been really effective in the last 2 years.
And how user-friendly is Sky Scout? I mean, is this something that can be accessed from pretty much anywhere? Is there a specific way to go about it? How does that work?
Well, I'm a baby boomer. And so I think from a technology standpoint, I learn a lot from my grandkids as far as some of the new apps that we have out there. Sky Scout is very simple, and I use it quite a bit. But I'll pull up my dashboard. I'll have alerts of fields that are entered into Sky Scout that have subscriptions, and I'll just look at the areas basically that are indicated in that field. Drive to the field. You have your GPS coordinates, your little blue dot, I call it, where you're at, and you just follow right to the areas, and then you use the expertise over the years of identifying what southern rust looks like, what common rust looks like, maybe tar spot, or whatever those diseases are. So it's very, very user-friendly.
All right, Dan, lots of great information today. Great to have this bi-weekly update. And for anybody who's interested in Sky Scout, wants to learn more, maybe start using it on their operation, how can they do that?
Call your Landus area representative at 515-817-2100.
All right, Dan, thanks again for the time as always, and we'll talk again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if nothing has really blown up past then we'll start talking about how are these ears failing. I'm seeing some areas where we've had some pollination issues. That might be interesting.
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters.
Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Iowa Ag Matters. Thank you to Riley. Thank you to Dustin. I'm Mark Magnuson. Join us again tomorrow for more here on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.